So let's get an understanding of the Etherions and the Anunnaki, because we just spoke about them the other day. Now, what we're dealing with, who we are today, we are a mixture of all of the above. It's very rare that you would run into someone who doesn't have at least a piece of the blood of the Anunnakis within them. There's a very little doggone possibility that you're going to run into someone that doesn't have a piece of the doggone Etherions in them. The Etherions were angelic beings that became flesh. They existed in energy form and then they became flesh. They came out of the divine plasma and they created their own electromagnetic field, which allowed them to be a presence. And the presence that they have, or that they became, allowed them to have access to this thing that we call the divine intelligence, the information of the all. These beings were able to bend light and to bend sound, and they can form structures. Now, as they begin to fall, they begin to become a little bit more physical. Now, it came a time when they had to build structures because they were becoming more physical. However, they still had the ability to manipulate sound and to manipulate light. And this caused them to have the ability to still generate and bring things into manifestation. So it came a time to when they had to have garments that they wore. These singlet garments were magical. And as they became more physical and wearing these garments, some of them decided to go away. And when they went away, they left their garments. And when they left their garments, sometimes people who were more physical, they got a hold to those garments. And those garments were used as magical tools in a sense. I didn't even mean to talk about that, but let's continue. As they became more physical, they started to build structures out of physical things. So what did they do? Some of the early structures that they built were made out of crystal, because it was easy for them to compress heat and to draw the elements needed to bring these things into existence. So they would create these doggone crystal doggone cities and towns and metropolises. As time went by, we built on top of that. But see, these crystals were set, these crystal cities and these towns, they were set in strategic places. And along with the strategic places where they were set, they would have crystals set up along the same ley line that they used to communicate with. These crystalline beings used to travel through those ley lines. And then they would set up their structures and have their structures placed in certain places where it would not only align up with the ley lines, but it would line up with the doggone the sun, moon, and stars. So, and the one star that they really had it hooked up to was Orion. We're going to talk about that when I talk about Sasquatch, because somebody asked me about that, and we're going to get into that. Remember, crystals are used to withhold information. Crystals, doggone, they vibrate at basically they're alive. That's the best way I can put that. Now, they had these structures built in different places. Now, as time went by, we had catastrophes, we had cataclysms, we had all kinds of things occurring. We even had nuclear devices that would be put off to wipe out people or the flesh. It's rumored that some places, some of those crystal chambers that they had, you could say you were deteriorating and your physical was getting ready to come to an end. They could place you in some of these dang on crystal chambers, and these chambers would regenerate your cells. This is information that they hide from us. They don't want you to know about these things. Hold on. I totally forgot I screenshot this. Those Etherians, they use these things for communication devices along the planet. But look, your bones are crystals, a form of crystal. And you can communicate with your bones. Look, have you ever wondered why certain beings, they would keep the skulls of certain like high-powered people? The reason is because that person's skull, they know within the brain was a computer, and it amplified their memories and their thoughts, and it was programmed into the skull. This is why they would take the skulls of people, of sacred people, and they would keep them. There's a lot of information that's going to be put out. I'm doing the imperial priesthood so I can give it to you and not give it to everybody. Normally, not normally, I would like to go and let you hear what AI had to say, but we really don't have enough time. So let's continue. Now, they would build these crystal structures and these crystal domes in certain places. And then as time went by and those cataclysms would happen, sometimes they would get covered up by soil. Sometimes someone may have had a device that would shake the earth, give the earth a certain resonance, and they would sink down even further. And sometimes people just purposely went and just put stuff on top of them. But no matter what, when those structures were placed underground, those sacred spots were still vibrating that energy signature. And then as time went by, they would continue to build on top of those. Now here, let me tell you how this works. Someone probably was living on one of those ley lines that had something to do with that sacred spot when they thought nothing was there. That sacred spot sent out the information to the perfect person who was born to become an architect. That architect would grow up and learn how to do the work, and then it would go and it would draw, or it would create on that sacred ground. And being that it was vibrating a certain way, they could only create it a certain way. They built the doggone buildings the way how they felt. That's the best way I can put it. That sacred spot was communicating with them. This is your man, L. Judge.